Hey guys, this is Kim Graham, co-host of the Affluent Marriage Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed your episode so far. And I know that you're like, wait, hold on, there's more here. And there is. It's in the next episode. We hope that you guys are going to join us over there. And in the meantime, if you're waiting, join us on Instagram at the Affluent Marriage Pod, because we'd love to connect with you, converse with you. We want you guys to message us, see how you're doing and how you're enjoying the podcast. We want to hear all of those things, and we cannot wait to help you live in love and walk in wealth in the next episode. See you guys soon.
Our second tip that we wanted to share with you guys, it's helped us be successful in our marriage and in our wealth generation, is keep your promises. If you make a promise to your spouse about money, make sure you keep it. This will show your spouse that you're reliable and trustworthy.
Yeah. And
well, look, here, let me start.
okay.
So making a promise with money, really, we do this. I want to talk about a few specific moments, but we do this every single month, right? We meet at the start of a month. We lay out our budget and we talk about what we're working towards, and all the extra income that we have at the end of the month, it's going towards a dream or a goal that we have for that moment or for that year. So we do this every single month. And you could look at that as the promise, right? We're making a promise that with every additional dollar that we have in this budget, we are promising to not use it on ourselves. We're going to use it on our dreams. Focus on our.
It's like a seal, like a covenant. Getting biblical. A seal.
What movie is that from?
Crazy Stupid Love.
Is that
Another
what that
great
is?
one.
Yeah.
Another great one.
That was a seal. But so I say that to bring up, a specific moment where we work together. I want to talk about is in those early foundational years of our marriage, right? Because that's when trust was being built. And I'm in the living room, opening up envelope after envelope of student loan debt. And I'm basically in tears because I'm realizing the weight and the burden that I've brought to our marriage, at the young age of like 22, 23. And I made a promise to you, and you made a promise to me that we were going to work together to knock this sucker out as quickly as possible. And we worked every job that you can possibly imagine to knock out that $76,000 in student loan debt. And I think that was a very pivotal moment for our marriage and for our financial journey, because it showed that we could trust each other.
Right.
I knew that with every extra job you were doing, you were contributing towards, I'm going to say our debt, but it was my debt.
Honestly, though,
but you were putting it towards our debt. And we knew that once we knocked this out, like, we could really live our dreams.
And honestly, listen, I'm going to be very, very transparent. I adopted his debt, but it wasn't something that I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll do. No, it wasn't. I was like really, really like freaked out. Like, I was like, that's a lot of money, bro. Like, how are we going to do that? We don't make that much money every single month. How much is the monthly payment? Well, there goes my dream of doing all these things. Like, I had an obsession with New York and Company. I had an obsession with like really nice, like, I don't know, shoes. And I wasn't going to be able to get all those things. Like, I wanted the nice things. Our first Christmas, I will never forget. We did so many silly things in this first apartment. Like, we bought furniture to fit each and every space of that house. Like, furniture that would not fit in another home. And we got like new things. Our first Christmas, we got so many gifts for each other. He bought himself an Xbox that he said was for me.
Whoa, it was for you,
not
babe.
for me.
It had a Connect. You were able to do your dance game or whatever.
That was like literally
Just
like
Dance
6 months before we started
0.5.
this thing. Understanding our whatever our finances. But regardless, like we just did not have a savings mentality. What got me in was the dream that, okay, Kim, I know this is going to be tough. And once we started really thinking it through, I was like, okay, if we get rid of this, here's what's available to me for the rest of my life. And I was like, all I could see was vacation.
Right, because when you see
all I could see was going shopping.
Right, your student loan payment, our student loan payment was almost like $1,000 every month at that point. So if we were able to knock that out, then that would be $1,000 in cash that we could pocket every single month.
All I could see were vacations. That's it. And I was like, Okay. All right. I'm down. Let's do this. Right. Like that's what got me. But these promises that you make are like your seal of like, this is what we're going to. If I decided to say, yes, I'm going to do this, I'm going to work on this with you. And then I went and got my little extra jobs and I thought, let me go to the mall and just blow it and go, I'm sorry. I know I said we were going to, but then I saw these really cute things on sale and I was like, I have to get it. Right. Like how much further would that have put us back? Right. And how would he be like, I can trust her to not just go and like get an additional job. Like that's not the problem, whether she can or cannot work, but I can trust her that she is going to be all in on this goal that we're going after together. Imagine if I just was like completely disregarding it. Like how would that have made him feel? That probably would have like created a foundation of, I can't trust her with money because she will give into her own impulses.
Right. And we talked about being equally yoked, right? The idea that we're both pulling together, right? Mm-hmm. We're strapped in together. If I'm trying to pull to pay off my student loan debt and I'm also having to drag your butt because you're buying stuff from the mall or whatever, that's going to get so tiring for me that I might end up just giving up and be like, you know what? Forget it. Like the debt is like, I just have this debt and she's over here like making money. You know, she's working all these extra jobs, but she's also spending it as soon as she gets it. Right. Like we can't make a dent in this debt. Like whatever, like it is. And then maybe I have a self-sabotaging, you know, behavior where I go out and like, you know what, I'm just going to go golf.
Right. What? Random.
Not me, but just like, you know, I wouldn't golf. I'll probably go play some video games or go bowling.
Get more. Yeah. Right. We would have.
I try to think of an expensive hobby.
Yeah. We would have slipped back to the mediocre is what we would have done. But we did the thing that most won't do. And that's keep going.
But again, be transparent. Everybody makes mistakes, right?
Everybody working hard. Those days. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. You don't know what that is?
No.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait. We're going to put this on social and people are going to be like, oh yes,
man.
It's Hannah Montana.
Oh no, I definitely wouldn't know what that is. Please. Hannah Montana. I only know Miley Cyrus.
Yes, it is Miley
I know her
Cyrus.
Later stages. I don't know that early stuff.
Yeah.
When she was wholesome.
But
so
when she was wholesome.
You're trying to like throw me through a loop here, man. I almost lost track of my point.
I'm sorry.
All right. So
everybody has those days.
Impulses happen, right? And it's just, you got to be transparent, right? Yeah. You worked all those jobs and then after work, you're like, you know what, babe? It was just one of those days, just one of them days, right? And you were like, I need a milkshake from Chick-fil-A.
Dude, it happens.
So you get your milkshake, you come home and, you know, your spouse is like, hey, you know, how was your day? It sucked. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Just be transparent. Be like, dude, I got a milkshake.
I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to do it, right? There are times when I will drag him with me. And I'm not going to say dragging him down. Like, because you deserve to enjoy yourself as you're going through this process, right? And I'll text him and I'm like, bro, you want this? Yes, I do.
Okay, I guess the example of a milkshake is kind of like a really cheap thing that's probably not going to knock you. But the point is, you know, everyone has impulse buys. They make mistakes, you know, but just be transparent and say, hey, babe, I did this thing. I know I made this promise to you that every single dollar I made this month is going to go to this, but I messed up. Be transparent.
Be transparent and then move on.
Because you know what? To you might say, well, dude, it was just a milkshake. It was like $3 or $4. It's not that big of a deal. Well, let me flip that on you. If it's not that big of a deal, why can't you tell your spouse?
Right. Exactly. Oh, it's true though.
Right.
It's true though. Also, how mad would you be if your spouse did that to you? Like flip the script in all those different ways. You want them to be transparent and, you know, honest with you. Be honest with them.
So we've said keep your promises and be transparent. Tip number 3, avoid lying.
Seems obvious.
It does. It seems so simple. But look, it's important to avoid lying about financial matters. No matter how small they may seem, lying can quickly erode trust and damage your relationship. So don't lie, right? Even if it's that $3 milkshake, like I said, you know, if it's not that big of a deal, then it shouldn't be that hard to say. Like, why break the trust? Why damage your relationship over a $3 milkshake? Right. Like and if you can be honest in the small things, you can be honest with the big things.
Just like if you can manage the small things, like you manage your money and what you're bringing in now, you can manage more money. But if you cannot manage what you're currently bringing in, do not think it will be easier with bigger amounts of money. It's the same principle with anything. If you cannot handle a small weight when you're trying to work out, you're not going to be able to handle a bigger weight. Like it is the same principle with relationships with your spouse, if you cannot handle telling them the small details, the small things, then you're not going to be able to have the bigger conversations.
And then also, if you want your spouse to be, honest with you and not lie to you, when they tell you these things, receive it with grace.
It goes back to that safe place.
Right? Because if they say, look, babe, I messed up. I bought that $3 milkshake. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to do better to help us get towards our goal. Man, if you let them have it and you beat them down, when they make a mistake that's like $100 or $1,000, you think they're going to come tell you?
Right.
They're going to know from experience, like, dude, I told them about a milkshake and they threw it in my face. Like, I'm not going to tell them about this. I'm just going to find a way to pay this off real quick and they'll never know about it.
It reminds me of our daughter who just had a moment where she broke something and was feeling she actually pinned it on her sister, typical. And then later on, he had a little bit of his dad radar went off.
Dad-dar.
And he asked her again, and she was like, I did it. And both of us, I thought, was so great. He sent me a text message and just said, receive it with grace. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. When I got home, she told us that she broke this tablet and everything, and she said that she blamed it on her sister. And and immediately, like, once you said it, I was like, I understand why he said what he said, but I was already feeling that way. I was like, thank you so much for selling that. If I just blew up at her, she's not going to tell me about anything else that she did, And right. I know there's going to be bigger things that are going to happen in the future. If I can show her grace in these small things, then she will come to me for the bigger things, for support and help and guidance and of how to. That doesn't mean consequences don't happen, right? In any of those situations, but she has to know that I'm her safe place in the same way that your spouse has to know that you're his or her safe place. When you come to them and tell them, I messed up. I know that we're going after this goal together, but I did this thing. Okay. Well, how can we make sure, like, I thank you so much for saying it. How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? Where is this impulse coming from? How can we make this work?
Right. You want your children, you want them to feel like they can tell you anything. Mm-hmm. And I want that for my spouse too. Like, I want Kim to feel as if though she can tell me anything at any time, and I'm going to listen and I'm going to receive it with grace, and I'm going to give her, I'm going to think about it and give her a critical thought. Mm-hmm. So Kim, earlier in the show, I talked about shakes and I said, if you want to dissipate the darkness, live in your light, go, if you're going to do the shakes, get those shakes and then lose that weight. And the proof is in the pudding. They can't dismiss your happiness and your results, right? If it works, it works. So tell them why I brought up shakes. So
there was this one time, it was probably like a year and a half or so ago, and I was perusing online, as one does when they should be sleeping or
right. Well, you had just given birth to Peyton not too long.
Right?
Yeah. So you had that baby weight.
Mm-hmm. And I still have the baby weight, but that's another story. And I've been like, oh, you know what? I really want to be able to kind of like get a head start on losing some lbs, So I saw an ad for some shakes that I had tried before, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and buy some. So I went ahead and I bought it. But when I was on the phone with them or whatever, because they called me about something, I don't know, they had a deal where you could get 3 bags or 4 bags for like $180. And so I was like thinking about it as I was purchasing it, and I was like, I can get this. Like, we have the money for it. It's not a big deal. $180, like whatever. And I went ahead and bought it, and I didn't ask Daniel about it. I just bought it. And the amount of like guilt I felt, not because we didn't have the money. That wasn't it. It was just like, I didn't talk to my friend about this. Like, I didn't tell them, even if I knew he was going to be like, yeah, sure, whatever. If you want to go ahead. Like, I knew it wasn't that I was scared of the repercussions. I just wanted to tell him. And so at first I was like, oh, I'll just buy it. And it's not a big deal. And immediately I felt like, I need to tell him. And I bought it already, but then I went to him immediately and I was like, I'm so sorry. I just want to let you know that I just spent $180 on shakes. And I don't know. I knew we had it, but I just want you to know that I needed you to know, because I didn't like buying something that large without telling you. And I know that large, but I didn't like doing it without telling you. It just felt weird. And so he was like, oh, okay. Like, he just kind of laughed it off. But it was just really funny how I
thought it was really cute and endearing. But I think people need to understand that this is us. This is who we are.
Yeah.
Like, this is how we've built our marriage. We've been married for almost 12 years now, and we just tell each other about all of our expenses. There's nothing that we keep in secret. We don't lie about anything, right? So it's not that you weren't going to tell me. It's just that's the first time that you've spent that kind of money, which, you know, as a listener, you might say, well, that's not that much money, you know, but to us, this is just, it was that much for us at that time. And we tell each other everything. Yeah. So you just felt
it really is just like the
weird withholding, you know, that information for not that you've held it for a long time, but because I don't even think
maybe
you made
30
it.
seconds.
Yeah, it wasn't long, but I don't know. I think that just shows how much we respect each other's opinion.
That's what it is. It's just the respect factor. I respect him so much. I just want him to know. Like, so I feel like I should have just been like, hey babe, I'm going to buy some shakes. I just want to go ahead and get some. It's going to be like $180. Okay. So when you see it, that's what it is. Like, that's literally what I wanted to be able to do before I purchased it. And for whatever reason in my mind, I was like, I'm just going to get it and I'm not going to tell him. I don't know why, but I didn't like it.
Right. But I need to say this. So we've talked about these shakes. We've talked about milkshakes. We've talked about right. Some of these things are really small numbers. But again, I need to reiterate, this is what we do. This is how we've experienced success. This is how we've built generational wealth. This is the kind of authentic communication that we have, the kind of transparency that we have. Yep. Right. And this is how we've been successful. Now, does that mean you have to follow the same formula as us to be successful? No. Your marriage is I'm not married to your spouse. Nope. I'm married to her. Yep. Right. You need to figure out for you and for your spouse, what is it that you want to do? What do you want your transparency to look like? Right. Now, I will tell you this, if you're not communicating your income expenses, your financial debts and all of that, you're not going to be successful. But what I'm saying is you need to decide, you know, what is that number? You know, do I need to tell my spouse that I spent $5 on coffee? That's up to you, right? We do, but that's up to you. Yeah.
And I'll say it's very weird. Like, some people have like a marker, like they have a specific like limit as to like when they'll have that conversation with their spouse. If it's over like $200, then they'll talk about it. But again, as we said before, those things add up, right? So I might say like, oh yeah, you know, I don't care if you go get a coffee here and there, but if you're getting a coffee every single day and you're spending 5 times 30, that's like what? You're really fast. You're a lot faster at that than I am.
I already know the number, but I want you to do it.
No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm on air and I'm feeling very like I get math anxiety. What is it?
150.
Thank you. That's what I thought it was, but I was like, I don't want to look like an idiot. Math anxiety. That's literally what I have. So yeah, so like that's $150 that could have gone towards something else. You know what I mean? And so if you're doing that 150 and then you're spending another 150 on something that you're like, oh, it wasn't $200, it's fine. And so when you spend all of those things, and no, none of them were over $200. So no, you didn't need to talk to your spouse about that, but they all added up and spent $1,000 over the whole month. Does that make sense? Like that's where it can come to, which is why you can't just say, oh, only if it's only this over this amount. That's why the communication is so important.
Right. So be transparent, keep your promises, avoid lying. Our fourth tip is to set and respect boundaries. Man, I love this one, Kim. This is a good one. Set clear boundaries around your finances and respect your spouse's boundaries as well. This will help you both feel comfortable discussing financial matters and avoid any misunderstandings. So there's something that we have set up with our finances. And that helps us to really not judge each other, if you will. Yeah. It's kind of something we put in place. It's our own little boundary, and we respect it. You know, whatever you want to spend in that regard, like, you go for it. Like, enjoy your life. And we call this buckets. Yeah. So in our budget, we have buckets, right? We have the main things that we pay for every single month, you know, electricity, water, mortgage, cars, whatever, you know. That shows up every single month. But we also have these buckets that we fill, right? So you have like a savings fund, but you also have like buckets where like we put money in for entertainment, we put money in for vacations, we put money in for clothing, we put money in for car repairs, we put money in for tuition, you know, these excess buckets, right? And you also have one for hair care. Dude, I want one for hair care.
As you should.
As I should, right? I got this beautiful beard. I need to maintain this.
You have done that before. It is not cheap.
So, all that to say, the boundary that we set, I'm going to call it our buckets, our boundaries, and we respect those boundaries. You get money every single month for clothing and for hair, right? And we also share entertainment. So if you decide you want to go out, like you just went and spent money on some spring dresses and spring outfits, right? Is there any judgment coming my way?
No,
I respected those boundaries. I could care less what you spent. Your money is your money in that regard for those sinking funds.
Yeah.
So whatever you spend it on, dude, no judgment. You know?
Judgment.
If I went out and bought a furry costume and I just wanted to be a furry,
and that's what he wanted to do,
no judgment, right?
Go for it.
If there's a, medieval, what are the medieval festivals called?
Comic-Cons?
No, dude. Like, I thought there was medieval times. Oh, Renaissance fairs.
Renaissance fair.
Come on, man.
I don't know.
We're hip, Kim.
We don't really go to Renaissance
fairs.
No,
we don't. But I'm saying if you went out and bought like a Renaissance fair costume
and
you wanted to do some bippity boppity boo or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you go for it, girl. You spend your money on whatever you want to spend your money on.
This is also super helpful
boundaries
for us, even when we do vacations and such of that, things of that nature. So, like, as we just said last week, going on vacation, we have until December. So this is a perfect time for us to be like, all right, we're putting a little bit of extra in that vacation account. And the conversation that we're having, people ask this all the time, but how do you have this conversation? How do you decide that you're going to give more? We talk about our money all the time.
Almost every day.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pretty crazy. Listen, man,
we're a little extreme, but I feel like
we're different.
It's a good thing to be extreme about, because we don't fight about it. And there's a lot of things that touch money that we're just like, okay.
It's just exciting.
It's just, I don't know. So all that to say, yeah, putting a little bit of extra towards that is so much fun, because guess what? When December comes and Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is on that ship, and we're already talking about taking both of our girls. Whereas 6 years ago, when Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique was around, I was like, that is such, like, who would spend? I would spend. Now, 35-year-old Kim almost would do that. Absolutely, 100%, because I saved up, and I'm going to make sure that my girls get the best experience ever, right? So, like, when you do that, you can say yes to more things without it deviating and like spilling over into like your actual bills account. Like, this is all extra frivolous funds that we just get to shower our girls with. Like, that's what you want.
What you consider expensive is relative to your opinion on money.
That's true. Like, that's so true.
What's expensive to one person is not expensive to another.
It's very
true. It has nothing to do with your income, right? Like, I was just in Aldi today, and I used to buy these waffles for my girls, and it used to be 89 cents for the box. And we slowly, through inflation, and this is within the last year, I watched it go from 89 cents to 99 to $1.10 to $1.49. I bought that sucker today for $2.19.
Crazy.
It's like getting close to triple what it was just 3 years ago. And I questioned whether that was too much money for that box of waffles. And I know that sounds dumb, but expensive,
89 cents.
It's relative to you, to what you think is expensive.
Yeah.
So that box of waffles is borderline getting too expensive. I started dipping into French toast sticks, and I was like, I might need to switch it up.
He was literally looking at the weight and like going, I feel like the French toast sticks might be a better deal. And I'm like, no, the waffles are going to last us a whole week, and the French toast sticks only last us for like 2 days because of how many the girls eat. But it's just really funny that you were really like at home, like thinking about it. But even the tortilla chips went up, and they used to be 79 cents.
Oh, man, don't get me started on my favorite
and now
chips.
They're like $2. Like,
come on,
anyway.
Aldi. Come on, America.
But
come on, inflation.
I will say this.
Okay,
say it. Our grocery budget, I feel like, is still under. We are still at about the same amount.
We did bump it up a little bit. Yes,
we did. I feel like we're still doing really good. Even
we're not
with
too
inflation.
far off.
Yeah. So anyway,
have those buckets in your budget, so that way you can set those boundaries, and it saves you from that judgment, from your partner, so they don't get upset when things are tight. They can't get mad at you for buying what you bought because it came from your sinking fund. Mm-hmm. So the other little thing I'll just say is we've been talking about these safe place conversations. To have a comfortable conversation revolving around financial discussions, if you set in place those things that we talked about for having a safe place, talking about setting a time and a place and being respectful, and like setting all of those things in place is going to help you set and establish those boundaries for having a comfortable conversation around finances.
And being able to come back to the conversation week after week or every other day if you're having it that often, but being able to come back and go, oh, here's how this week went and here's how I felt about it, right? Using those I statements. I felt this way when we went to the store and I don't know, I was feeling some resistance about buying these waffles for $2.19. And I just felt like we should get something different, right? I know it sounds really lame because it's talking about waffles, but like that could be a serious thing for you at this juncture of your conversation with your spouse. Treat it as such, right? Because at the moment, that's where you are. And eventually, the more that you have these conversations, the easier the bigger conversations will be. That's why everything, like the proof is in the tiny little details, not in the big, huge conversations. If we're only looking at our money when we're in crisis mode or when we're getting close to a crisis mode, you're not going to be prepared enough because you didn't look at the small details.
Moving on to our next tip. Communicate openly. Communicate openly. So for this, you need to communicate regularly with your spouse about your finances. Share your financial goals, your concerns, and any challenges you may be facing. Be open and honest and encourage your spouse to do the same. You know, a big reason why we do so well with our money conversations, and I know we said we're a little bit crazy because we talk almost every day, but we communicate regularly.
Yes.
All the time we're talking. But there are times that are not just random, right? We have scheduled times to talk finances. And that's what I would advise the listeners to communicate openly. I think you need to put it on the calendar. I think you need to set a time and say, you know what, it's the first of the month or it's the end of the month. Let's sit down to talk about our finances. Let's talk about our budget. Let's see how we did. How much income did we have? How much were our expenses?
Assign those tasks. Suppose people are doing something.
The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, right? With anything in life. And it's going to become quicker. So yes, that first time you sit down to have that conversation, my gosh, we probably spent hours the first time, and we took breaks for sure. But now, like, we sit down at the end of the month and it's less than 10 minutes, right? I mean, it's quick because we've been on top of it all month. We sit down, we look at it, we say, okay, this is number A, this is number B, this is how we did, this is what we have left.
Number A, number B.
I guess I was thinking like line items, like this is line item A, line item B. It's late right now, y'all.
It is 10. I love how every time we're doing this, we talk about the time. Y'all, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want your dream? It is 2:20 or 10:21 in the evening.
Hey,
it's been a long day.
This is when we shoot, man. When the kids are asleep. We already cut one time because we thought our daughter was crying back there. Well, she was.
She was because her blankets weren't on her properly.
Right, and that's important, right? You need to have your blanket on you properly. That's worth crying and interrupting the podcast for.
She wasn't in a proper burrito, so I had to re-roll her.
So we meet at the end of every month and at the start of every month. We don't really do quarterly, but we do meet at the end of the year. Yes,
right. And we talked about that in the previous episode because, this is Graham Fam. So you guys have already heard all of that about specifically what we do to celebrate those moments and also talk about those bigger moments and do the dream casting and stuff like that. We are going to talk a little bit later because we had someone ask specifically about how we go through our budget and how we even set this up in our step 1, step 2 about that. And so we're going to be getting into that within the next month. But yeah, like you have to be willing to communicate openly and work together, which is our next point.
Work together, collaborate with your spouse on financial matters, make joint decisions, set financial goals together, and work towards achieving them as a team. So we talked about this earlier. We talked about being yoked and the importance of pulling together. I don't want to have to drag your butt. You don't want to drag my butt, right? We want to pull together because like we learned with the oxen, right? They can pull 4 times their weight.
Yeah.
Compared to if they pull by themselves, they can only pull just their weight.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Let me give an example before we go into the next point. The social media. So I've been doing social media. I've been on social media, as I told you, I had a boutique, and then I went into coaching on social media. So I've been on social media, just kind of in the ins and outs of all of this stuff for the better part of the last 4 or 5 years. My husband, however, has chosen not to have social, and that's fine. But anytime I've ever
I don't like people.
Every time I've had an idea of something I'd want to do on social with him, I didn't really want to pull him along, and I was like, no, it's okay. I'll do it myself. It's fine. Since the inception of this podcast, because he was like, I'm going to have to get an Instagram, which is all him. Like, he had to start that and say that. It could not have been me to say, hey, you should get an Instagram. He said he wanted to do an Instagram. And I'm hoping that you guys are following us on the Affluent Marriage Pod and you've seen my husband and his shenanigans. He is out of control. And I am like, my eyes are like bugging out half the time because I'm like, what the heck? I have had to do so many videos for him in the past 3 days. I've had to be an Instagram wife.
I'm just blinking my eyes repeatedly for the camera as I smile.
And he is out of control. But
you know,
now,
it's just...
wait, no, I'm about to say something good.
Go ahead.
But now we're both in social media, and I have some ideas that I've had up my sleeve for a while, but I've chosen to be like, nah, he won't care. No, he doesn't want to do it. But now that we're both in it together...
Heyo.
Oh, watch out.
I was just going to say it's like payback because I've been the Instagram husband for a while now, right? Like we'd be in Bermuda for like our cruises and stuff, and I would be snapping photo after photo. I got very good at taking photos of you.
You are very good.
The key,
and now you
listen, Instagram husbands out there, the key is to not stop.
Don't
stop.
Click,
just
click,
mash
click,
that
click,
click button, man. Take as many photos as you can per second. You know, it's like people brag about how many words they can type per minute. Like, how many photos can you take per minute? That's the real flex as an Instagram husband.
Yes.
Photos per minute.
I literally was on a chair
PPM.
Earlier today filming for different angles for his video for today.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome. I'm just saying we both are now on the same level playing field, so it's not random or weird if I'm like, babe, can you take this picture for me?
Yes.
I want you to be up in that corner.
And then can we switch places, and then can you do the same for me?
Absolutely. Watch out, world.
Hey.
Watch out, world.
So work together, work as a team, right? We talked about also how we paid off student loans.
Mm-hmm.
There have been other things throughout our marriage that we've worked together towards, right? So we say that at the end of every month, we put money, the excess money that we have at the end of every month goes towards our dreams and our goals. Mm-hmm. And some of those along the way, right, started off as being student loans. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we wanted our own place. So we saved up
emergency funds
for you're right. I forgot about that. We saved up our emergency fund, and then we saved up a 20% down payment.
Well, stop. Before we did that, we went to Disney.
And we bought a dog.
We bought a dog.
Lord.
I don't know if we talked about that. We'll have to talk about that another time because that was the worst decision we could have made.
It's an impulse buy.
But it's okay.
It was an impulse buy.
It was something I had to get off my chest. But anyway, we did a lot of crazy, irresponsible things.
Yeah, we're not perfect.
But then we kept
happen.
going. But we
have grace for each other.
Yep, and we kept going.
I've forgiven you for that dog.
He was sweet.
Was he? All right. So we saved up an emergency fund, went to Disney, bought a dog. We saved up 20% down payment for a home. We saved up for renovations in our home. We've paid off this home, right? We paid for cars in cash. We went on other trips. So all of these have been dreams. Taxes.
Oh my gosh!
Almost forgot. How could I forget about taxes?
How could you forget about taxes?
The first year that Kim had her business established, she kind of did taxes on her own. This is why you
need to have somebody helping you guys.
Big mistake. So we owed probably like $10,000 in taxes.
And it was more than that. It was like $17,000 by the end of it.
Because it was like 2 years.
But the reason why is not because of how much we originally owed. It was because of the interest. We talked about that last time in our last episode. Interest
is the enemy.
You want interest to be working in your favor, not against you. And so I had no idea that this interest had been working against me. So by the time that the IRS got to us, this probably...
It was like 2-3 years after the fact.
It grows up to $6,000 to start, and then it just kept going up. Not this particular bill, but just overall after we redid 2018, 2019, and then 2020, it got all the way up to $17,000. But what I'm saying is it was probably a $500 bill, but with the interest that was that we had no idea was just festering.
Right. So
get a professional.
There's wisdom in getting a professional to help you with your tax help for your business.
Which gets us to our next point.
Well, I want to say before we get to our next point that I think we're such a good listen because, dude, we've made all the mistakes.
We made all the mistakes.
So
guys, We've done it.
You don't have to make the mistakes.
When we
Go ahead.
When we tell you to find a professional, and when we tell you that coaches have helped us do X, Y, and Z, when we tell you, hey, watch out for this pitfall, it's not because we're trying to force you or say, oh, you need to just spend all of this money. Having people in your corner to support you, to give you guidance, to know your specific situation, because everybody's different, is only going to benefit you, especially when it comes to finances. When you find someone who's actually willing to sit right next to you and nuzzle up and say, okay, let's figure out, let's strategize your next step. You're not going to get that from someone on the other line of the phone that you've never spoken to before, that you're only going to talk to for one day, right? Having someone who's literally in your corner, who understands your unique situation, is only going to benefit you. Only going to benefit you.
Which leads us into our next point now. Seek professional help if necessary. This is,
Please,
man,
y'all.
this is so big.
Get
right?
over your pride.
If you're facing financial challenges that you cannot resolve on your own, consider and strongly consider seeking professional help, such as you mentioned a financial advisor or a financial counselor, right? This is going to show your spouse that you're committed to resolving any financial issues and building a strong financial future together.
Yes. I've even had people who say, well, I mean, financial stuff, like this should be something everyone, why do you think that everyone should be able to know how to do this? We weren't born with this knowledge. It's just something that we all happen to like interact with, right? It's not like breathing. Yeah, we are coming out of the world. Most of us breathing. Some of us
That's involuntary.
Need help, and we need a respirator to help us, right? But like when it comes to making money and managing money, that is not something that we should just automatically know. That is something that is a skill that should be taught, and then we have to continue learning about it. And so seeking professional help is not a pitfall. It's not you admitting defeat. You've never
not at all
learned how to win.
Not at all.
You've never learned how to win. You got to learn how to win and know exactly what to do for your situation, so then you can actually play the game. Like,
right.
You don't know the rules.
And as a couple that is currently winning with money, we've sought help, right?
Yep.
Now,
I should teach you something.
We've both had financial coaching. We talked about Amy Scott. You've had business coaching, right? We've also, right, after you gave birth to our firstborn, I don't know if you did with our secondborn, but you went to therapy.
I did. After the firstborn, I went to therapy.
And I dealt with my anxiety during the pandemic, and I went and sought therapy, right? All of these things were valuable experiences. They helped us to grow as a person. And when I went to therapy, yes, I went to it for me, but I also went to it for you, because I wasn't about to have my wife be like stuck up, pent up with this anxiety ridden, like,
wondering if you're okay.
Man, like I had so many panic attacks that year.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like,
awful.
this is not okay. Like I genuinely felt bad for my children and for my wife, because I wasn't the same dad that I wanted to be. So I went and I got help.
Yeah.
And it changed me, right?
Yeah.
It made me better. And the same thing is true for you with your therapy with, your postpartum, right?
Yeah. Oh,
like
I needed it.
That was so necessary. And the financial coaching was absolutely necessary. We've never done couples therapy, but I'm not against it.
No, I'd love to do it. In fact, like, no, nothing is wrong. But why would you wait until something is wrong to get professional help? Like seek understanding of where you currently are to get a deeper understanding of what's working, and so that you can strengthen that foundation even more so that you're less likely to fall into traps where there could be issues in the future, right?
Right. I never want to have that fixed mindset. Like I always want to be growing, and I want my relationship to be stronger every day.
Every day.
Every day. Because like you hear about in the news couples that seemed like so good together, and then something just happened and they fell to because they waited maybe until things were bad to try to repair it.
Right.
Like
you
it's
have to wake
like
up
car
and
maintenance,
choose.
man.
Yeah.
You got to take care of your car, change that oil every, so often, because if you wait too long, then you start have bigger problems with the vehicle, right? Have that routine maintenance. So take care of your relationship, guys. Take care of your finances. Seek help if necessary. And I'm telling it, it's probably necessary. Even if you're doing good, like it's just nice to have someone come in and tell you you're doing good.
Yeah, honestly,
right? That feels good
seriously,
too.
it
Pat
does
you on
feel
the
good.
back.
It helps you even with like some of the small things that you didn't even recognize. A lot of times that happens with my clients where they're like, yeah, like one of my clients said that the one thing when we first started meeting is that when she went to she mentioned flippantly that when she goes to the gas station, she only puts like $15 in it. And I was like, why is that? And she was like, well, because I never know if there's enough in the account. Meanwhile, they're making really good money every month. She's like, I know the money's there, but for whatever reason, I just can't bring myself to do it. And I was like, is that really abundant thinking? So 2 months into us working together, she was talking about how she did blah, 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 blah. She went to get gas. And I asked her, I said, wait, stop. Did you fill up your gas tank? And she was like, oh my gosh, I did. And she didn't even recognize it. And I was like, do you see how you're shifting your perspective of your money simply because we're doing this work? And that is what I'm not a therapist, but that is what someone supporting you and helping you and encouraging you is going to help you see that you are winning. You are doing a good job. That small win that you just glossed over was huge because 2 months ago you weren't there. And that's something that you need someone else to be able to say, hey, you're doing a great job. And that's what a coach is able to give you. One of the things, I know we go from something like really good to something that's not so great. But I want to also talk about really quickly is about warning signs, especially for those who are listening. And financial abuse is a real thing. I've seen it firsthand and it's scary. And I need for people to understand that it is not something that it's a real thing, right? 99% of domestic violence cases involve financial abuse. And the financial abuse can have extremes, but it also can have subtleties that you probably are just glancing over because you're not actually looking at your own finances because of fear, because of backgrounds, because of mindset, because of whatever. So if you're here and you're listening, we're going to talk more about it a little bit later. I'm not going to dive into it now, but I want you to know the warning signs of someone who's reluctant to get to the conversation, to come to the table, no matter what you're attempting to do. Someone who's constantly having a fixed mindset and trying to take control of the finances or blaming you for the reason why financial growth isn't happening. It's your fault why we're in the situation. Well, why did you spend on this? Well, I'm doing everything perfectly. What did you spend money for? And why is it okay for if you go shopping somewhere and you get something for yourself and it turns into, why did you get that for yourself? But your spouse is able to go get something and come back and it's supposed to be, I brought money and so I get to do what I want to do. Watch out for those things because not that you're saying that you married someone that has ill perspective, but maybe they don't recognize the juxtaposition of what's happening. The manner in how they are approaching is actually damaging to your mindset of your finances. Unfortunately, a lot of the people and the spouses that the couples that I work with, this is the work when it's done is when the spouse that I'm working with has the eye-opening experience where they're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. And they're actually able to get their money together so they can leave. It's the work. Like, I don't want that for any of my clients.
No, it's definitely a stance that we want your marriage to be happy and to be healthy. And that's why we have this podcast. We want you to grow generational wealth and we want you to grow authentic communication with your spouse. And we talked about this in like one of our very first podcasts.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Outside of, men and women cheating on each other, like the number one reason for divorce is communication and money. And if you can get this right, if you can get your money right and your communication right, like you are literally saving your marriage from so much stress and heartache. But like we said, if it is beyond you, if you're doing everything you can and it's just not happening, like that's when you need to go seek professional help. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There is nothing wrong with seeking
professional help. We've both
professional
done that
help.
for ourselves with anxiety, postpartum. We've did that with financial coaching. Like we sought help.
Yeah.
And it changed us.
Yeah. And prepare yourself. You know what I mean? Like.
And you don't have to wait until things are like awful.
No, prepare yourself now, especially if you feel like it's getting to that point. As you do your own research, and we'll talk about it later because I just, it's such an important topic that
that's a good topic.
It deserves its own podcast episode, probably for the general public.
Hey, earlier you said you're not a therapist, but I want you to know your love is therapy to me.
Oh my gosh. I love you.
Yeah, girl.
The cheesiness that just oozes from you.
So to wrap up, building trust with your spouse when it comes to money takes time and effort, but it's worth it. By being transparent, keeping your promises, avoiding lying, respecting boundaries, communicating openly, working together, and seeking professional help if necessary, you can build a strong foundation of trust and create a healthy relationship around money.
I love it.
Take us into our call to action and our affluent archive nugget.
That's right. So our CTA for today is, have you had your conversation with your spouse yet? And what's holding you back? I want you to have an honest look for yourself. Take the opportunity right now to seek within. Why have you been holding back on having this conversation with your spouse? Set an alarm and talk to your spouse and say, hey, we've got to do this. I just want to talk about one thing, right? And make it a date and make it happen. And when you do, I want you to celebrate that. Celebrate that you took one step. Again, none of this is going to happen overnight. It takes time and it takes diligence and consistency. Our affluent archive for today is true wealth begins at the dinner table, which is what we said in our last episode, but it rings true. True wealth begins at the dinner table. When you start to have these conversations regularly with each other, that is where the shift and change and mindsets and money management and routine and habits and skills, that's where it begins. If you can be faithful in the small stuff, that's scripture, isn't it?
Hey-yo.
If you're faithful in the small, then you can manage the big. But if you cannot handle what you are currently given in front of you, do not be surprised if nothing ever changes.
So again, if you have not followed us, I am Dan. I am on Instagram at the Affluent Marriage Pod, and this is my wife, Kim. Tell them your Instagram.
KG Millionaire Coach on Instagram.
Yeah, it is. So thank you guys so much for coming and spending time with us today. Grand Fam, we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for listening. I know that if you're listening, you are growing because you got no choice but to grow if you're listening in.
Yep.
So thank you guys. Yep. Go, live in love, walk in wealth.
All right, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.